Hello film fans and welcome to this episode of the Sherlockian. Now, are you a fan of dinosaur programmes? And are you very pedantic? Are you the kind of person that watches David Attenborough documentary and says, I think from the sound of that soundtrack that those moon bears appear to be several thousand miles out of their way, judging by those bird calls? Methinks someone in the sound department has been doing a bit of casual editing? If so, I've got the perfect show for you. Welcome to Planet Dinosaur, the show that showed you something in animation and then showed you the scientific evidence behind it. Now, I did watch this show when it first came out, and I really quite liked it, and then completely forgot about it until I was doing some research for my video on Prehistoric Planet, which of course comes out next week. And it sort of reawakened my interest in this show, because it was very unlike quite a lot of other dinosaur documentaries. Generally speaking, there are two types of dinosaur documentary. You get the one kind, which is similar to Walking with Dinosaurs and Prehistoric Planet, where they pretend that they've got a film crew actually in the past. So the shots are very similar to the kind of shots you'd get on an ordinary BBC or whatever documentary, and the narrator talks about dinosaurs as if they're actually there, and the things that they're talking about are, actual facts that have been verified by people watching rather than general scientific supposition and educated guesswork. Or you get the other kind of dinosaur show, which is where they actually interview paleontologists on the subject and dinosaur experts, and they take you through everything and show you a dinosaur skull and explain how they work things out scientifically about dinosaurs. Whereas Planet Dinosaur did both at once, which is not an easy trick to pull off. They'd show you animated featurettes of dinosaurs doing interesting stuff, and then once he'd showed you that, John Hurt, the narrator of the programme, would then take you through how they'd worked it out, using animations of dinosaur skeletons and also pictures of the actual bones and fossils that they were looking at, and how they'd come to the conclusions and the animations they'd just created. And it made for quite a fascinating show. What I really like about this show in particular is the way they used camera angles. Most dinosaur shows, as I mentioned before, generally act as if they've got a real camera crew in the past. But you don't actually need to do that, do you? For one thing, you're not actually limited by the constraints of a genuine camera crew. For example, there are certain things you can't do with cameramen because it's too dangerous. You can't, for instance, get them to walk on foot next to a stalking leopard because the chances are they might get attacked or they might scare the leopard off. Whereas with animation, you can do whatever you like. You can have camera angles directly from the prey's point of view, as if you've got camera attached to the dinosaur's head. And then you can show really, really, really detailed close-ups, as if you've got a camera right next to the T-Rex or the Majubosaurus as it rips into the other dinosaur and tears its throat out. In other words, you can show camera angles you'd never be able to get in real life. And that's what I like about this show. They really use the animated format to their advantage, rather than trying to pretend and almost con the audience in a way into trying to make them believe that they'd actually got a real camera crew there and it was all real life. Instead, they used the animated format to their advantage and showed you stuff that you'd never be able to see, even with a time machine and a BBC film crew. There are two scenes that particularly always stood out for me about this show. There was the scene with the Spinosaurus in the first episode, and then a scene a few episodes later on Tyrannosaurs, which I really enjoyed. So the one in the first episode was concerned Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus. It was looking at an area which is sort of roughly sort of modern Egypt, which was even more sort of fertile and flooded than it is today. Obviously today most of Egypt is desert, and it's only the sort of direct sort of area close to the River Nile that's very fertile and lush. Whereas in times gone by, apparently, it seems as if that area was more generally lusher and watery. So they looked in particular at Spinosaurus and how it hunts for fish in the rivers, and I really, really found it interesting. For someone who'd only really encountered Spinosaurus, and that only sort of third hand through the third Jurassic Park film, where it's the main villain and it's this terrifying thing that even the T-Rex can't kill and it's very scary, to see it actually as it probably was, this very specialised, highly adapted animal which hunts for fish in a very interesting specialised way. And the way that they can tell this from the fossils, they can look at the skulls of its snout and see that it's got the same kind of sensory organs that you'd find in modern crocodiles. I thought that was fascinating, and it really, really brings it all to life. You feel that you can believe much more what they're saying. I mean, I know I'm naturally quite cynical about stuff anyway, but you really feel that you can take for granted what they're saying. It all makes sense. I also really like the episode on the Tyrannosaurs, mainly because generally speaking, you tend to think from watching dinosaur documentaries that there was one Tyrannosaur, T-Rex, and it went round and it ate Triceratops and it was all very scary. And actually, to show, as the show did, that there were more than one species of Tyrannosaur, there were lots of different types, and that they all hunted sometimes in quite different ways and they lived in different areas. I feel that was really, really interesting. Obviously, if you knew a lot about dinosaurs, which I don't particularly, but if you did, it probably was no big surprise that there were more than one type of Tyrannosaur. But for someone who's sort of only casually interested, to find out that there was a diverse sort of subspecies of different kinds, I thought that that was really cool. And I particularly like the scene where it shows a group of Tyrannosaurs hunting together in a kind of pack. I really liked that scene. I mean, I mention it because obviously it seems to be something that they're building upon in Prehistoric Planet, where it shows you like a family group of T-Rexes. And I said when I reviewed the trailer for Prehistoric Planet, I have no idea whether that's actually what happened in real life, because obviously we can't be 100% certain, but I liked the idea. And it's interesting to see how they've kind of built upon it, because in Planet Dinosaur, John Hurt talks about the fact that they kind of the cooperation between these Tyrannosaurs isn't particularly, structured or planned. It seems quite, rowdy and aggressive, and he points out the fact that we can actually see scars from other Tyrannosaurs on the bones of Tyrannosaur fossils and bones that they've discovered, which I think is very interesting. But it's interesting to see how that idea has now evolved into a more close-knit cooperation. And I do remember thinking when I watched that, well, that doesn't necessarily prove that cooperation wasn't more highly structured. After all, if you examined lions or wolves today, we know that these are animals that are very highly cooperative, and yet I'm sure that you'd find marks from other wolves and other lions on individual animals' bodies, because obviously animals fight. And you watch a documentary on lions today, you can see that they are often quite aggressive around their kills, even with each other. So it's interesting to see how that idea has kind of evolved across. But yeah, I just really enjoyed the show. I really like what it tried to set out and do, and I think it really succeeded. I think the animated style in particular looks quite good even today. You can obviously tell it's not real, but that's kind of the point. It's not trying to trick you that it's real, it's just trying to show you what happened. So yeah, that was the Sherlockian. Thanks very much for watching, film fans, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.